to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So we're just calling this the beta test.
Very much so.
Wow.
So I'm glad to see the two of you all. I'm waiting for Sir Lawrence. I'm actually going to be in the background for the most part. Waiting for Connie. Connie's going to join us in a minute.
Oh, I wonder if I can use Clubhouse. I've got an old cell phone here. Let me see.
This is actually quite exciting. But
There's a lady of wisdom.
Can you hear me, Reese?
I got you.
I'm looking forward to the pacing that we might be witnessing tonight.
I know, right?
It's gonna be so cool.
Sir Lawrence, you can't use your phone and your. Oh, there we go. Okay, it looks like it. Yeah, okay. We can't see you, Sir Lawrence.
Oh, that's right. I got the camera here. Okay.
So, Indy, you've got your mic on Clubhouse going, so you're actually technically recording all the vocals. Is that correct?
Right. I'm in the background. I'm just getting everybody set up right now. But for Dr. Carolyn and everybody, like I said, we're just right now setting it up. We're kind of beta testing this thing. We're doing a live stream right now. It is showing up for those that are looking. It is showing up on Sir Lawrence, your device. Looks like you're trying to share your device with two different streams. We are right now beta testing this. So, like I said, we're excited. We are excited, but.
Just a thought, what we could do, because I can still receive messages via Clubhouse. So if you want me to mention something or you want to add something, you can always message myself or Indy. And also, if you press and hold your picture on Clubhouse, you can bring emojis up. So and I know some of you have already started doing that. Reese, I think you actually were the one who showed me how to do it. You're the first one I saw doing it. So that's cool. So Lauren, well, I've got a thunderstorm raging here as well, which is brilliant.
Oh no!
I love thunderstorms, but sometimes they can get a bit loud. So I'm not sure how loud this one's going to get. So I apologise if it is a bit loud.
That may work for some people's backgrounds, though.
That's true. I already have the time to go with it, you know. So
I know, right?
It's so cool. We've got some messages already.
You know what? Let's go ahead and get started. Jules, you want to go ahead and introduce it? In fact, we'll do this. We're going to have this in the beginning, but for right now, we'll start with
this. Sorry, I was trying to check and see if my older phone would work, but it's not up to date enough, so don't worry about it. Sorry. Oh no.
Hold on. Control V. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you now, yeah.
Uh-oh.
music too loud for you, Adam?
I'm having a really difficult time hearing Indy's voice. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is the music okay?
Oh, there you are. Now you sound perfect. It was, yes. The music was totally. I couldn't hear anything except the music for some reason. I don't know what was going on. I apologize.
It's fine. When we get better music, it'll be fine.
No,
No worries. See, this is why it's good that we're doing this today on the European Book Slam.
It's so cool. It's so exciting. This is something that I have been extremely excited about. So, shall I take over, Indy? I'll take the silence as a go. All right. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is just amazing. This is like you get to like see the little icons on Clubhouse, but to actually see people is just amazing. So it's wonderful, and it's such an exciting sort of step forward in terms of what we're going to try and do. So I apologise if there's technical issues. We are testing it. I'm just turning my phone down so that I don't get loads of feedback and stuff. Am I coming through right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good.
Lovely. So yes, this is just a beta test, or beta test. So obviously we're expecting there may be some issues, but we're going to work through them. We're going to see if we can resolve all of them so that we can do this as a possible ongoing thing, which would be absolutely amazing. So welcome. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually do this slightly different from what we normally do on Clubhouse in terms of like just getting straight into reading it, because we can see people. It'd be quite nice to just have some people being introduced. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to introduce Indy, but he's obviously going to be in the background, so he's not going to be saying anything on the stream.
And let me interrupt just for a second, Jules.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, make sure your mic's on Clubhouse.
Oh,
because no one can hear you in Clubhouse right now.
We can do both.
Oh, hang on a second.
Huh?
We can do both. I don't.
Oh, hang on
I
a
can
second.
hear you on both, Adam.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, but okay.
Yes, I sure can.
Got it. Okay, so I'm gonna have to switch back and forth. I can handle that. That's cool. That's
That's
doable.
cool. No, that's okay. We can do that's. Like I said, we're possibly gonna have a few teething problems, things that we need to iron out. But I'm gonna start, I think, the streams doing a slightly different way of introducing things because we can see each other. It'd be quite nice for people to have an opportunity to sort of introduce themselves before we actually properly begin. So if I introduce myself and then we can kind of go along, I'll introduce Indy as well on the stream because no one will be able to hear him on here. And it just explain a little bit about what he's doing. And then we can kind of go through each person individually and you guys can have an opportunity to introduce who you are and just very briefly sort of say the genre that you're writing in and, you know, whatever you kind of want in terms of your intro. So my name is Jules. I am a science fiction, science fantasy and dark fantasy author. I've written 2 books, published 2 books. I've got another one on the way in the same series. I've also started, for my sins, somehow writing short stories, which someone who shall not be named managed to rope me into quite nicely. But it's cool. I'm excited. I love it. So the first one I've written, I'm actually really pleased with, and the beta reader who read it loved it, which is amazing. So, and yeah, so and I'm also getting Adam, who's also very pleased with what I did as well, which is brilliant. So that's technically 2 beta readers who really liked it, so that's really good. So it's basically exploring the lore that goes in my world. The genre is technically about recovery from trauma and mental health problems that can stem from trauma. With that sort of science, like fantasy and science fiction backdrop, it kind of makes it less of a, dark horror nastiness that's going on. So that's a little bit about me. I also have started a Discord as well called Write Owls. You're very welcome to come and join me over there. And I am also a book publisher as well, kind of having a broad spectrum of things that we're publishing, but with a real focus on narrative, character-led stories, and also authors with a very unique voice. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to introduce Indy on here because we're not going to be able to hear him on the stream at all. So Indy is going to be in the background. He's going to be doing all the wonderful technical stuff. So if you see cameras change, it's not me. He's also going to be playing around with settings and things and making sure that we can all hear each other and making sure that it's all coming across, and sounding brilliant. So if you do want to talk to Indy, he is available. He's actually on Clubhouse as well. So by all means, send him a message via there, or you can also, ask to speak on Clubhouse. Now, if you want to turn your mic on Clubhouse when you're talking, that would be awesome, because that means both we can hear on the stream and also we can hear on Clubhouse. So it's a little bit fiddly, but just remember to turn your mic on and off on Clubhouse so that we can hear you on both settings. So, which I have just learned a few minutes ago, which is awesome. So, should we go in alphabetical order? I think that's probably the fairest way of doing it, isn't it? So then we've got Adam, Connie, and Reese. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to you, Adam. So if you introduce yourself just very briefly and tell us the genre that you're writing in, and then we'll go on to Connie and then go on to Reese. All right. So Indy, if you turn your mic on the Clubhouse as well, and Indy, amazing. Thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, and I hope you can hear me on Clubhouse. Hi, I'm Adam. I was going to wear like a costume and everything, but it's really, really hot today here, and it's kind of miserable, so I apologize. I was going to have like a mask on and everything. I write fantasy, otherworldly, weird, mysterious fantasy that is specifically focused on queer people and queer characters, and it takes place in a world that it's a very strange, unique world that has a little bit of magic and stuff. And I'm going to read you an excerpt from that today. And I was hoping to read it from I am not published yet, but my book is called The Starting End. And I printed myself a single copy just so I could make notes and edits in it as I read it to myself in preparation for publishing. And I will be publishing with Jules, who you see on your screen, and she's here. So yeah, let me jump in here and read a little to you. Let me give you a little backstory where we are. Okay, so the main character and a few of his friends have gone to a concert, and the concert's just ended, and they're leaving, and they've been invited to see another concert, and they're actually going to see the exact same person, but she plays music. She's just played a big concert with like other musicians, and now she's doing a more mellow piano performance, and that's what they've arrived, and she's in the middle of the performance. Another musical interlude broke and moved the composition into a new vibe, changing and shifting its mood. Tati's voice returned and now sang in a language that Ollie didn't understand. Her mysterious words swept him away, and their syllables made him think of distant mountains and forests, wild lands that beckoned to him. Passing Tati's crooked teeth and her thin lips, line after line of lyrics flowed and swirled around Ollie. He was lost in the woman, lost in her magic, lost in her song. Despite the crowd gathered to enjoy her performance, Ollie felt like he was alone on the rooftop with the woman. The piano Tati played was positioned beside what looked to Ollie like a dead tree. Its sun-bleached trunk and leafless limbs were stripped of their bark, and the fruit that hung from the bare branches was shriveled and dried. But maybe it was decorative. It didn't seem to be alive, so maybe it represented something or was an artist's creation. Good, isn't she? Bong asked right by Ollie's side. He nodded his head towards Tati. Bong was holding a drink in each hand and extended one to Ollie. It was a dark and frothy brew, and Ollie detected a nutty aroma before his first sip. It was cool and thick and refreshing. There was a subtle bitterness akin to coffee or dark chocolate, but the beverage was also sweetened with honey. Yupe joined the two men in the shade and took a large draught of her own drink. It was a deep amber color and came in a mug with a large handle. She sighed after her swig and smacked her lips. Another song ended, and Tati spoke. "This is my last number," she said, and she sang. Do you know that deep down inside, underground never dies? I heard the word dirt weren't worth its weight of life that assimilates one life to the life of the next. Now intertwined, you and I reside, melding with the molten mantle topsoil again, and blend with the earth, which fed now feeds and frees the feeble beasties underneath, the tiny herds, those colonies. Words won't weigh what love believes. Tati's voice dropped out and her fingers danced across the keys. Then Ollie saw her. Lounging on a sun chair in the shade near the piano was his goddess, the woman worthy of worship, Mistress Unu. He was back at her home, the Vailotil. Mistress Unu was enraptured by the music as she watched Tati, and Ollie stared at her. His eyes moved over the woman's long features, and he remembered how she loved him. The music evolved, and Tati's voice returned. Ollie pulled his reluctant eyes from the beauty of the woman that they beheld, and he turned to stare at the singer. Through cultivation, hope springs forth, the irrigation of love's subtle force. Patience grows at patience rate, like we all need time to germinate. I see the seed cracked and opening beneath, spirit returned, calculated, flowers reincarnated. The house evolves, the dirt revolves, unbelievable passion dissolves, away goes the way it looks and feels. Then a house, a home, a garden and soil, the earth and our needs. Tati's energy increased. She hammered the ebony and ivory of the piano as if possessing it with her very spirit. The song built, and she sang with a wide mouth. Her impacted canines stuck out like fangs. This is conquest, all love and war, beauty and disaster outside our door. Decomposition never looked like this. Break it down with me and we can see that we're all part of this beautiful mess. The woman let out an emotional moan and the song dropped. Her fingers barely tickled the keys. The tempo slowed, then her voice returned. Through cultivation, hope springs forth, the irrigation of love's subtle force. Patience grows at patience rate, like we all need time to germinate. And silence. Thanks, Tati concluded. The audience rose from their seats with applause for the woman, and Ollie lost sight of her. As the clapping died down and the people began to disperse, Tati was nowhere to be seen. Ollie looked around the rooftop and his eyes landed on Mistress Unu again. She saw him and headed right for Ollie. Her body was draped in a sheer robe that tied at her waist, and Ollie could see every inch of the goddess beneath it. Her lovely piercings, her incredible curves, her beautiful bronze skin were all visible through the garment, and Ollie felt his love for her. She gave him a sultry smile. "Hello, lover," she said with amazing allure. "I see your drink is almost empty. Come get a fresh one with me." It felt like a command, and Ollie liked obeying. Mistress Unu hooked her hand in his elbow, and the two walked up to the little beverage hut. Ollie turned back and saw Bong talking with Yupe as Tati approached them. He greatly desired to join their conversation, but now that he was with his mistress again, Ollie didn't think he possessed the willpower to abandon the woman whose side he now stood beside. Mistress Unu ordered a pair of fizzy drinks, and Ollie was surprised by the flavors that greeted his lips. They were fruity and sweet, but there was a peculiar quality that he couldn't describe. After he swallowed, the moisture seemed to be sucked from his lips and tongue. It was as if the beverage produced a drying effect. But he very much enjoyed the flavors, and Ollie sipped it while he strolled along the edge of the rooftop with Mistress Unu. They approached the strange tree by the piano. A tiny sign was nailed to its parched and light-faded trunk. "Dried power fruit tree," it read. Mistress Unu flicked one of the hanging withered bundles. It swung back and forth, and Ollie realized that each of the fruit was in fact tied to the naked limbs with thin thread. The sun had shriveled and faded the dainty dangling fruit clusters, and Ollie wondered what they looked like alive, now all grayed out and peaky. "Dicks," stated Mistress Unu. Ollie must have misheard her and paused, waiting for more words from the woman. When none were forthcoming, he ventured, "What?" "This is my dried power fruit tree," she declared. "It slowly grows with men's hatred." Ollie repeated himself. "What?" The trunk is dried driftwood from Thela Isle," Mistress Unu elucidated. "The cords are braided strands of heartstring seaweed, handmade by one of our loves who harvests it in the coastal waters himself." She smiled. "The world becomes a better place with each addition to my collection, and I've slowly collected these dried power fruits that hang from it." Hesitating, "What?" Ollie asked again. "Everywhere in the world," Mistress Unu explained, "one may come across the power-hungry, those individuals who are only interested in taking, whose purpose is parasitic. They are the needlessly greedy. They are the rapacious ones. They are the megalomani, the lovers of avarice, the love assaulters." Mistress Unu flicked another little fruit and added two more words. "They were." Ollie looked at the newly swinging thing and realized that it wasn't quite as dried out as the others. There was also a familiarity to it, but something about the fruit seemed wrong somehow. The pale hue was sickly, almost as if it was a little dead animal and not part of a plant at all. "This one," Mistress Unu continued, pointing at it, "beat one of my loves rather than worship her. He beat her, so I collected his power fruit and ushered him into—" She paused. "The redeemed," the woman said with a tone of voice thick with sarcasm. "The love's name is Milniken," Mistress Unu stated. "Milniken," she repeated. "Her bruised and bloody body was at death's door when the man was finished with her. In one of our private chambers downstairs, he barricaded the entrance from within, intending to sneak out after completing his torture. But his villainy did not go unnoticed, and when he emerged, I was waiting." "Did you know," Mistress Unu asked, continuing in her casual tone of voice, "that everything can be a weapon?" Ollie's eloquence knew no bounds. "What?" he asked yet again. Mistress Unu then collected quite a few abandoned paper handouts with information about Tati's piano performance. The woman stacked and curled them into a round wand that she gripped firmly in one end. Then she stated, "Just like this. I was holding a small stack of flyers when I confronted him. I shaped them like so, and when he pulled the door open, I stabbed him in the dick with it." The woman thrust the tightly rolled papers forward into the air in front of her like a dagger. "Then I stabbed him in the dick with it again. I stabbed him in the dick with it over and over." Ollie's face broke into a startled expression. "When he buckled and fell to the floor, I kicked the man in his horrible face," she continued, and Ollie looked down at the high-heeled shoes that she wore with unmatched grace and poise. Her tone was even and without exaggeration. "And I kicked him in his horrible face again. I stabbed my rolled paper at his mouth and teeth, stabbed it at his nose and eyes, and then I stabbed it at his dick again. This is all with rolled paper, mind you," she declared, talking in a mild and terrifying way. "I just kept stabbing him with my rolled papers and smashing him in the dick until he stopped moving. Then I cut his smashed dick off," Mistress Unu concluded. She gripped the hidden handle of a tiny knife, exposed its hook blade, and then returned it to its sheath. There was a pause from Ollie. When he spoke, the words, "It sounds like he deserved that," came out of his mouth. "You're right about that," another woman agreed, right behind him. The voice then added, I like you. Ollie was amazed to turn around and see her, Tati, the piano player. She gave him a brief, toothy half smile and put an elbow on his shoulder. Fuck that piece of shit, Tati scoffed, and she also flicked the shriveled swinging dick. She added, fuck all these pieces of shit, and waved her hand towards the tree as a whole. You coming? She asked Ollie, still leaning on him. I'm hungry. Bong's cooking. Go with her, my love, Mistress Unu said to Ollie with deep affection in her voice, and she kissed the corner of his mouth like he had done to her. With Tati's arms still on his shoulder, he walked away from Mistress Unu, but the goddess relished Ollie looking back, and he couldn't stop his eyes from giving the immaculate woman one more once over. Hi, so I hope I didn't freak everybody out with that. I guess I have to move back and forth between the two apps.
Yeah, I think this is the only bit that's a little bit awkward, isn't it? Having to just juggle the from both and doing it simultaneously. But I think with practice, we'll get there.
Cool. Yeah.
That was amazing. I really enjoyed that. I love the violence with the paper at the end. That was quite inspiring.
I actually stole that from my favorite movie. There's a scene in the original 1979 Alien movie where the android character rolls up a magazine and just starts beating the shit out of everybody. Awesome. Also, Jackie Chan has done the same thing in kung fu movies, just rolled up paper. Brutal. And I was like, I'm making this woman badass. Nobody's going to see it coming. It's going to be horrible. Yep. And I did it. And it's, I was kind of embarrassed. I was kind of embarrassed reading. What's that? Sorry.
I said the paper cuts burn like buggery. That's so cool. I love it. Your world is so, every time I hear little glimpses into your story, I don't know. I don't. Obviously, everyone hears it differently and creates their own world in their mind as to what they think it looks like. But I had, the scene in The Fifth Element where you've got the opera singer who's on stage and she's singing.
Yes.
I had something like that in my head, except like a nude. I don't know why. She just happened to just not wear any clothes. She probably did.
People are constantly nude in my book. Constantly nude all the time. Unapologetic.
That's cool. That's cool. So tell me a little bit about because your book is a mix of genres. I've realised. So yes, it's fantasy, but there's also other elements in there as well. So what made you choose to write that blend? Because sometimes authors quite like sticking in the same genre that they're comfortable with, like crime or thriller or whatever, because it's something that they're familiar with. But when it comes to when you're blending genres, you're having to then think outside the box a little bit. So what made you choose to do that like that?
I think that it was natural for me to write in fantasy in that genre just in general, because that's the style of writing or reading that I enjoy primarily. I've read a lot of science fiction. I've read some horror, but I take a lot of joy in fantasy stuff. So that was kind of the natural direction for me to go. But I also wanted to celebrate all sorts of different people. So that's part of the queer norm element of the world, that my book is less about magic, less about going on an adventure, and more about these individuals who live in a world that doesn't have hatred in the same way that we experience it. There are a lot of struggles and there are issues, and people have problems. Like the person who obviously was being horrible to that woman who then had his dick cut off. He's a bad person, and he deserved that. And so there are bad people in my world who do bad things, but it's not because of the hatreds that we experience in our world. So I just wanted to celebrate people and put them through just weird things that are different from us. So yes, there's a lot of queer people. There's transgender people. There's people of size. There's let me see. I'm losing my stuff. There's people of all ages. There's people of all ages, and celebrating all those people. even when my editor, who's much older than me, was reading it and got to a part where I was describing older people, I could tell he got defensive and thought I was going to like make fun of them being old, and he was like in tears at the end of the scene because I was just making this old person really cool and have a great experience and what he wasn't expecting. So I just that's the main part of my book is celebrating people and doing it in a weird way. And there's okay. So one other thing is you're right, blending genres. There's a lot of erotica in my book. There's tons of sex. It's super sex driven. To celebrate all different types of sex and kinks and things that people are into, and so yeah, there's definitely some of that. I think I thought I was writing some short erotica thing that I was going to try and submit to like Penthouse magazine or whatever, but that is not what happened. I wrote a pretty story, you know, and there just happens to be a lot of sex in it. So yeah. But I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I want to get off because I feel really embarrassed that I'm like still staring at my own face on this thing. So I appreciate everyone listening and making me feel awkward while I read creepy stuff. So thank you.
That was really cool. I'm actually going to like embarrass you a little bit further by asking Reese if she's okay to share a little bit about what her thoughts are, because I think at one point both Reese and I think we looked at each other. There was a moment when you were reading and both Reese and I kind of caught each other's eye on the camera and we were like, oh my God. So is that all right, Reese? If I sort of pass it over to you to provide a little bit of feedback and what your thoughts are, because, you know, you have some very interesting facial expressions throughout, which I think mirrored some of mine. So I'm going to mute myself. Adam, if you mute yourself as well on both this and obviously on Clubhouse, then Reese can unmute hers, and then it shouldn't be too much of an echo.
Okay.
Listen, I was tickled because I already knew where it was going when I started listening to the part about the tree. I already knew where it was going. I'm going, wait a minute. That's not what I think it is hanging from the tree, is it? But Adam, you know I love your reading. You have the most colorful descriptions when you read your scenes, and I mean the singing, man. I was sitting here going, yes, Adam, sing, Adam. I loved it, man. It's every single time there's always some fun and fancy free type thing going on in those scenes. It was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost you for a second, but yes, good.
Make sure your mic's on the if you're talking, Adam, it just
Am
makes
I?
you
Sorry.
on the Clubhouse as well, and then we can hear you both ends. I just want to add to that because actually I didn't mention the singing. That was amazing. You've actually got a really good voice. I know I've heard some of your music as well, like with the stuff that you've done, but when you're singing live a cappella and you're under a bit of pressure, because obviously the live event and things, that was really good. I'm really impressed by that. That was amazing. So tell us a little bit, finish off with tell us a little bit about your book, your plans for getting it published, and sort of like what you want to do going forward with it. It'd be lovely to hear that.
Sure, yeah. So again, my book is called The Starting End, and I do have a single printed copy that I made for myself that I'm working on, but that is what it's in the end going to look like. And I will be publishing it with Jules's company, Daniel Books out of London, which I'm really, really super excited about. Yeah, I've got plans for the follow-up novel. I've written some short stories that take place in the same magical world, but that don't actually take place in the story of this book itself. So I'm kind of excited about those. And yeah, I'll keep everyone posted about when it's published or when there's a link about more information. And thank you so much. And I'll jump off. I'll mute my.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I've just responded online to a message that we got through the chat, and it's come up with not my name, an Indy's name. So I'm apologising publicly, Indy, for sending that on your behalf. Okay, so I'm just going to bring it down a little bit in terms of levels of seriousness. I do have a poem I would love to share with you. You guys know I love doing lots of research. I love reading stuff about psychology and things like that. And also, I actually really enjoy poetry as well. So I thought I would find a nice poem to read to you. This is an interesting one. I think it's very inspirational, American poet, and I think that we have a lot to learn from it. So I'm going to read it to you now. Said the signified monkey to the lion one day, "Hey, there's a great big elephant down the way, going around talking, I'm sorry to say, about your mama in a scandalous way. Yeah, he's talking about your mama and your grandma too, and he don't show too much respect for you. Now, you weren't there, and I'm so glad. Because what he said about your mama made me mad. Signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You always lying and signifying monkey, stay up in your tree. You better not monkey with me." The lion said, "Yeah, I'll fix him. I'll tear that elephant limb from limb." And he shook the jungle with a mighty roar, took off like a shot with a 44. He found the elephant where the tall grass grows and said, "I come to punch you in your long nose." The elephant looked up at the lion in surprise and said, "Boy, you better pick on somebody your size." Poem. Now, it was the non-explicit version, so I just thought that I would tease that to you. I thought it'd be quite a nice one. There are some other ones that I have found. You don't have to read that one. Would you like me to have a go at doing another one? Are you happy for me to do that? Yeah? Okay.
Go for it.
This is another one that I found quite inspirational. Way down in the jungle deep, the badass lion stepped on the signifying monkey's feet. The monkey said, "Motherfucker, can't you see? Why are you standing on my goddamn feet?" The lion said, "I ain't heard a word you said." Said, "If you say 3 more, I'll be stepping on your motherfucking head." Now the monkey lived in the jungle in an old oak tree, bullshitting the lion every day of the week. Well, every day before the sun go down, the lion would kick his ass all through the jungle town. But the monkey got wise and started using his wit. Said, "I'm going to put a stop to this old ass kicking shit." So he ran up on the lion the very next day, said, "Oh, Mr. Lion, there's a big bad motherfucker coming your way. And when you meet, it's going to be a goddamn scene. And wherever you meet, some ass is bound to be." Said, "He's somebody that you don't know. He just broke loose from Ringling Brothers' show." Said, "Baby, he talked about your people in a hell of a way. He talked about your people till my hair turned grey. He said your daddy's a freak and your mummy's a whore. Said he spotted you running through the jungle, selling arsehole from door to door. Said your sister did the damnedest trick. She got down so low and sucked an earthworm's dick. He said he spotted your niece behind the tree, screwing a motherfucking flea. He said he saw your aunt sitting on the fence, giving a goddamn zebra a French. Then he talked about your mummy and your sister Lou. Then he started talking about how good your grandma screw. Said your sister's a prostitute and your brother's a punk. Said, I'll be damned if you don't eat all the pussy you see every time you get drunk. Oh. I hope you enjoyed that. It does go on a bit. I can maybe finish that off next week for you. All right then, my lovelies. Okay, so that is actually by a poet called, oh my God, Rudy Ray Moore. If you enjoyed it, then I will read some more, maybe a bit later or next week. But for now, should we move on to the next wonderful author for the evening? So let me go back to Clubhouse quickly so I can get ready for that one. Now, I promised we'll go in alphabetical order, but Connie has unfortunately disappeared. So what we can do is, Reese, would you like to go next? Shall I hand it over to you? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mute my mic on here. So if you unmute your mic on here as well as on Clubhouse, and then you're ready to go.
Good deal. Y'all know I try to stay prepared one way or another, so that makes this very easy. Hi, everybody. My name is Reese, aka Reese the Storyteller. I have been writing since I was a little kid. And as far as what I'll be reading from today, I will be reading from my book Trapped. It is available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And this is a scene that I was asked to do previously. And it's from one of the four main characters, Stephanie. So she'll be going through a little interesting scene with her boss. I sat in the morning meeting in a haze. I couldn't focus on anything. I didn't know what was worse, being in the presence of the executive staff while I was battling with my hormones, or being in the privacy of my office where there was no distraction from my thoughts. The cuff of my blouse lightly caressed the tender brush burn on my left wrist, and I almost moaned from the sensation. Flashbacks of the feeling of silken ropes rubbing against my skin as Sterling teased me made for heady daydreams throughout the morning. By lunchtime, I was completely on edge. One more misplaced thought, and I'd probably end up in the bathroom stall trying to curb this carnal ache. That is, if it wasn't for this stupid chastity belt I was wearing. The metal straps were covered in leather straps. The metal straps were covered in leather, fit snugly around my waist and thighs, and the metal plate only allowed for necessary bodily functions, but prohibited other activities as per its design. To ensure the latter, a padlock was attached, and Sterling had the only key. I didn't even know they still made these things. Sterling told me he'd ordered it, knowing at some point I'd break a rule, if only for being curious what a punishment would be like. True to form, I intentionally broke the rules we discussed just to test him. My punishment was an uncomfortable night in this contraption. Sterling called it training. I asked how he knew I'd even wear it. He said he had a gut feeling. Lucky me. Hot and bothered, I figured I'd take a walk during lunch and get some fresh air to calm myself down. When the elevator arrived, I leaned my shoulder against the wall as it descended to the ground level. Closing my eyes, I let out a slow, shaky sigh. I shifted slightly as my thoughts drifted back to the previous night. Coffee was the last thing I wanted. I slipped my tongue around the inside of my mouth, stirring my sensitive palate. My hands grazed the rough fabric of my wool slacks, and the friction against my thighs made me tingle from head to toe. What movement wouldn't cause pleasurable sensations to rip through me? Every nerve was alive and excited. I felt like I was high on some potent aphrodisiac. What was happening to me? My phone buzzed in my pocket, and the vibration caused me to shiver. I checked the text. It was Sterling. Are you being a good girl? I ran a hand over my face. The frustration was real, and I wanted to ignore him. I could do just that, turn off the phone and call this whole thing off. I wanted to tell him off, and at the same time, I wanted to give in to his every whim. My phone buzzed again. Need I remind you that ignoring my text is grounds for additional punishment? Is that what you want? My hands shook as I quickly text back. No, sir. I apologize for the delay. Good girl. Meet me in my office after lunch. I have a conference call that you should sit in on. Yes, sir. I'll be there. I put my phone back into my pocket and crossed the street to my favorite deli. I needed to get it together before the meeting, and the best way to get my focus back was on a full stomach. This was going to be the longest day of my life. At 2 o'clock sharp, I tapped on Sterling's open office door with my notes for the meeting tucked underneath my arm. He waved me in without looking up from the papers on his desk. I crossed into the room, closing the door behind me. Lock it. I paused midway to the desk. Excuse me? Sterling reached toward the phone on his desk and pressed the intercom. Sheila, get Parker Donahue on the line and make sure that I'm not disturbed during this meeting. Yes, sir, the voice of Sterling's secretary replied through the speaker. Sterling looked in my direction for the first time and asked, do I need to repeat? In the empty chair beside me and stood without protest. He smirked and said, take off your clothes. I froze. If it had been later in the day or even one of our late night work sessions, I would have had no problem getting naked in his office. But it was midday and the building was fully staffed. My apprehension flashed across my face. I don't have all day, Stephanie. Or would you like to remain in your new prison another day? That subtle threat got my attention. No, sir. No, sir, what? I don't want to spend another day in my new prison. Then I suggest you do as you were told. Strip. I nervously glanced toward the door before removing my shoes, blouse, bra, and slacks. When I was done, I stood bare with the exception of the chastity belt covering my sex. Sterling moved a stack of papers in front of him and sat them on the far corner of the desk. Come here. I moved to the other side of the desk and stopped before him. He reached out and ran his fingers across the straps that secured the belt to my hips, and a jolt of electricity shot through me. Did you sleep well wearing your present? No, sir, I answered honestly. You don't like it? No, sir. Sterling gripped the small padlock and tugged me closer. Do you want me to let you out? Yes, sir. Ask me to let you out. Please let me out, Mr. Chambers. Sterling pulled a small metal key from his shirt pocket just as the intercom crackled to life. Mr. Chambers, Mr. Donahue is on line 2. Thank you, Sheila, Sterling said, his green eyes trained on me. Will you be needing anything else before I head out, sir? No, Sheila, that will be all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, sir. I'll see you in the morning. When the intercom clicked off, Sterling lifted me onto the desk. He spread my legs apart and pulled his chair up between them. The ridges on the inside of the metal plate pressed into my skin. The dull ache from earlier amplified into a deep throb. The muscles below my waist tightened almost painfully. Hands behind your back. I placed my hands behind my back as Sterling reached over to press the button to accept the waiting call. Parker, he said, it's about time you got back with me. A rich laugh came through the speaker. I could say the same for you, Sterling. You're a hard man to get a hold of. Sterling chuckled and adjusted himself in his chair, which drew my attention to his lap. I unconsciously licked my lips as I stared at the bulge growing beneath his zipper. He was tormenting me, and I was absolutely sure this was only the beginning. I have your proposal here as well as one of our junior partners, Stephanie Stone. Good day, Miss Stone, Parker greeted me. Good afternoon, Mr. Donahue. I know Sterling is a hard ass, but I hope he's been treating you well. I glanced up at Sterling and gave a nervous laugh. It's been a pleasure to learn from one of the best in the business. He definitely keeps me on my toes, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Sterling nodded his head. Pleased with my response, he unlocked the chastity belt and released the straps, and I sat completely exposed to him. Well, we're all set on this end, Sterling said. I know there's a lot to cover, and I'm on a tight schedule. Let's get started. Very well, Parker replied. As Parker began his presentation, Sterling reached over to the phone and muted the call. You've been a good girl today, Stephanie. I think you deserve a reward. My ears perked up. I wondered what he had planned. And if those plans included taking me on this desk in the middle of the conference call, the thought alone was enough to make my temperature rise. What kind of reward? I asked. Is that how you ask? May I please know what the reward is? Sterling sat still, studying me. The only sound in the room was the droning from Parker's voice as he discussed the company financials. You're going to make yourself come. You want to watch me touch myself? That's right. But you won't come until I say so. Right now? Yes. May I begin, sir? I asked excitedly. Yes, you may. I eased my hips to the edge of the desk, propping my heels on the surface, then leaned back using my left hand to keep my balance. I brought my right hand around to the front of my body, dragging my fingers across my thigh. When my fingers sank into my wetness, I gasped. Much better than the belt touching you there? Sterling asked. Yes. Yes, sir, I breathed. Sterling watched with lust-filled eyes as I slid my fingers over my slit, then delved deep inside my warmth before returning to my clit. Free from the confinement of the belt and with his eyes on me, I had become hypersensitive. Every thrum of my fingers drew me closer to that sweet ending I'd been longing for all day. The voice over the phone yammered on while my flower rained down my fingertips. My breathing was getting deeper. My eyes closed, and I focused all of my attention on my rhythmic strokes. I was close, so close. Stop. I opened my eyes and looked at Sterling. Biting back a groan, I brought my movements to a halt. I lay back against the desk, fists clenched at my sides, my body screaming at me to go on. I squeezed my thighs together, the pressure causing me to shiver. Continue, Sterling said, and the torture went on. Sterling dictated every movement. He kept me on the edge, made me bring myself to the brink of ecstasy repeatedly, only to snatch it away. I'd lost track of time, as well as the number of times he made me stop, then start again, as the presentation continued in the background. Please, Sterling, I begged as I teased myself. Please let me come. Stop. I tossed my head back and forth against the desk, tugging on my hair, squeezed my breast, anything to help ease my suffering. Sterling smiled at my misery. Continue. I tried to go slow, tried to stretch out the climb, but my body had other plans. I wouldn't last much longer. Do you want to come, Stephanie? Sterling taunted. Yes, sir. Please. I want to come so bad. Please let me come. Sterling stood up from the chair, hovering over me, watching me tremble and sweat as I desperately tried to hold on. If he made me stop one more time, I thought I'd stop breathing. I can't. I'm right there. Please. Your orgasms are mine, Sterling said. Yes, sir, I moaned. I decide when you come. In that moment, I felt something come over me, a calming sensation in the midst of this madness. I wanted this. I needed him to push me to my limits, needed him to take me higher, take me deeper. And I began to let go, to allow him to have full control, to have everything. He became the ruler of my body, and I became a prisoner of my desire. Just when I thought I would lose the battle, Sterling sat down in his chair and folded his arms across his chest. Come. At his command, my body splintered, my free hand covering my mouth to smother my moans. I couldn't stop shaking, my orgasm wrecking me, sapping everything from me. My thighs locked around my fingers and I started coming all over again. I never experienced a release so intense in my life, and I wanted to live in that euphoric feeling forever. When I finally regained control of myself, Sterling's voice reached my ears. Good girl. What do you say, Stephanie? Thank you. Thank you, sir, I replied with a satisfied smile. Then my whole world went dark. And that's the end of that scene.
Sorry, it's a little bit fiddly trying to do the I genuinely love that. And do you know what was really cool is when you're reading it, you're actually getting into character. So like you've got that snarl on your face when you're reading his like vocal thing, and then you've got like a on your face. You're really nervous. It's so cool, and like you don't get.
I don't even realize I'm doing that. That's the funny part.
It's so cool. I love your top, by the way. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
But you don't see that on when you're just listening to it, but you really got into character. It was so cool. And yeah, both Adam and I were like, yeah, this is a bit steamy. It was really good. I know. I don't know if Adam's read it, but I tried to read 50 Shades. And I told you last week, didn't I? I got through the first chapter, and that was difficult.
It was a rough read.
It was. It was almost like stuff was put in there just because that was what the book was about, rather than what you got, which is it is just part of the story, and it's the character that is the important part of the story. And if you've got a character if you've got a story that's character led, then you've kind of drawn the reader in straight away. And I'm meant to get your book out. I actually have it on my shelf just over there. So I actually do have it on my like pile to read. So I promise you I will get there soon. But I actually really enjoy listening to it because it's just not, like I said, I picked up 50 Shades and I read the first just because I was more intrigued because everybody was buying it in the entire world. So I was intrigued to find out like what it was about and what the whole, interest was in it. And then I got through that and I was just like, oh, that was that it. Oh, okay. I'd rather read gothic horror or like Saw or something like that because it just wasn't very interesting. But yours is really, really interesting, and I actually genuinely enjoy listening to it. And to see you put characters on, that was just so cool. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But I'm actually going to head over to Adam now to get him to give some feedback because I know that erotica is something that is embedded in his novel as well. So it's not in mine. I don't have any sex or anything like that. I'm a little innocent white pony who doesn't do anything about sex. So I'm going to mute myself, Adam, so we can hear you. All right?
Yeah, great. I think, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, great, cool. Yes, I'm so sex positive. I love this. I was in and out last week. I wasn't able to participate to the normal level and read with everyone. So when I tuned back in and Jules was saying, oh, and Reese's read was so steamy, I was like, oh, I'm going back. I got to listen to the replay. And so I did. And I mentioned it Tuesday at the book slam that everyone who responded to Reese was stumbling over their words and didn't know what to say and so awkward and felt embarrassed. And it was awesome. It was so great. I loved it. And yes, so to your writing is beautiful. Your reading, the way you present it is gorgeous. And I'm so sex positive. I love the celebration of kinks and different ways of getting off, being sexy, all this stuff. So yeah, thank you, Reese. And thank you for reading that again. And I loved the characters also. I've got to say, I was really trying not to put too much character into while I was reading, but now I wish I had. Now I'm going to next time. Well, I was going to make the little flick move and everything, and I should have done that. But okay, thank you for reading. I'll mute myself again.
I love it, Adam. You are hilarious. But I'm telling you, it's always interesting sharing scenes like that. I mean, even college level, it was always interesting. My friends' reactions to a lot of the things that I would write. And it's like, where are you getting this stuff from? I'm like, y'all have no idea. You don't want to know what goes on in my mind. That's a place for only me to live. Trust me.
I think when you have, it's weird, isn't it? Because as authors, we kind of like, when you write stuff, you have in your head, well, I don't know about everybody, but I certainly do. When I have a story in my head, I can envision it. I am actually presence there in that moment, either witnessing it behind the camera or just happen to be standing there and like a bit lost in like, oh, I'm in this place now. And then someone talks to me and sort of brings me back into reality, which is a bit of a sad time. But it's really cool because like when you actually have that imagination, and so I don't have that kind of imagination. So either of you, I don't have that imagination at all. So hats off to both of you for being able to do that, because I'm not. Absolutely. I think it's very brave to write in that genre, because it's a very vulnerable part of your life anyway, in terms of you are at your most vulnerable in the entire world at any point in your life. The only other time I would say you're that vulnerable is when you're really sick, and obviously you can't look after yourself. So when you are opening yourself up, because when you write a story, you're obviously a little part of you gets put into whatever it is you're writing. You're kind of opening up that doorway, aren't you, into you and your mind. And so when you write erotica, whether it's BDSM or if it's queer or whatever, it doesn't really matter. You are kind of showing that vulnerability, and I think to be able to do that and I don't mean this in a weird way, but like in a mature way where it's normalized and it's just this, and being able to talk about sex as well, because I mean, how many people do you know are actually still embarrassed to talk about it? Even as adults, it's quite shocking. People might have dirty minds, but they might not talk about it because it's embarrassing. So to be able to put it into a book and create characters from that, and have a story that's led by those characters, but happen to have erotica in it, like both of your books, I think that really shows and illustrates the strength of your writing and the ability that you both have to be able to incorporate that level of depth and vulnerability. So I really do respect that type of writing. My kind of writing in terms of what I would write, but I do absolutely respect it, and I think that it's needed, because there are people who may have kinks, may have things that they think, I like that idea, and then think, oh, I'm a bit weird for thinking that. And so therefore read a book like either of yours and then kind of go, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks that, maybe that's okay. Or
that's exactly right. Yeah.
I just think that as authors we bear that responsibility of shouldering some of that world to other people. We have to take on that responsibility of saying, this is a world that's open to you, this is the possibilities that you may have. And so and some of those possibilities might be sex kinks or BDSM or all manner of other things. And so I think as a society we need to normalize all sorts of different types of relationships. Adam, you write about a whole range of people within the LGBTQ community. Reese, you have BDSM, which is, and I think both of those are on that spectrum of normality, aren't they? They're not necessarily in the same place, but they are on that spectrum. And I think it's that spectrum that is so important. And by being able to share that through a novel with the world, with people who may be embarrassed or ashamed or feel bad about, their own sexuality or their own, sexual, fantasies and things. And let's be honest, we're talking about things that are completely normal here in terms of like legal stuff, right? We're not going off the world of stuff that's like not legal, okay? So within that realm, within that remit, but we have that spectrum, and I think by having that spectrum open in novels, it enables people to have that opportunity to kind of go, I'm normal, I'm actually okay. And what it does is any feelings of being ashamed or anxious or mental health problems that have kind of come from that trying to hide themselves into, I'm not queer, I'm not queer. Actually, no, maybe I might be. I think that is that's a good thing. And so people might mock erotica as if it's not really proper writing. I know some people mocked 50 Shades, for example, because they felt that it was like, you know, not really proper writing. But actually, I think it is, and I think that it needs to be celebrated. And I think there is a whole um, community out there that do just that. But I don't think that community is broad enough. And I think to have people within that community from all walks of life, from all different career backgrounds, from all different cultural backgrounds, from all different gender backgrounds, I think that is so important. So I do think that it's such an essential part of being an author, and sort of sharing, you know, what we can achieve as people. So you go. That's my little soapbox moment. But I genuinely do. You know, the respect I have for both of you is just, you know, massively high.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that you talking about the celebration of people and different ways of life, that's exactly right. And I haven't read 50 Shades and I haven't read Reese's book, but I know I can feel it in Reese's writing that it's a celebration of different lifestyles. It's not a taboo. It's not to shock somebody. It's to celebrate it. It's to show that it's beautiful. And yeah, you're right. It's a celebration of different people and kinks and beautiful stuff. Yeah. So thank you.
I would definitely agree with that. And also, you know, it normalizes things that we tend to like just keep to the bedroom, you know, and it makes it, you know, much more open. And you know, our bed tends to be, well, a whole range of stuff happen on it. But it kind of takes it out of there, which makes it more, you know, how many people fantasize about what you write about, Reese, but then think they're weird. So I think, you know, same as what you write about, Adam. And I think that's really important. So, you know, although we talk about it as erotica, I think actually it is an essential genre that we should have, and I think it should be here to stay. And also, from a female point of view, and Reese, I think you could probably attest to this. Most females, I'm being very specific and not putting every single woman under the banner because everyone's different, but most females prefer to read stuff like that as opposed to men who prefer to watch things like that. And so it has that nice balance to it. You know, so it just adds value, I think, rather than removing it and then sort of, you know, turning it up and making it into something else. So yeah, so no, it's and do you know what? I actually really loved the way you read. I genuinely did. It was so cool watching you because you really put a character in it. It was so brilliant. So I'm going to get you to just share with us again where we can get the name of the book, and then we're going to go to the next author if that's okay with you.
Okay. Well, yep. The name of the book is Trapped by Reese, and you can get it from Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, in paperback, digital, hardcovers on the Barnes and Noble end of the world. And of course, you can always catch me on my IG. I am Reese the Storyteller, and also check out the website ReeseWritesBooks.com.
Nice, and I think we've actually got on the screen at the bottom at the bottom you had your Instagram handle there as well, which is cool. So follow you as well on there. I followed you everywhere else, but just not there. So thank you so much, Reese. That was just fun, and I love listening to you. So okay, let's move on to the next author. Now, Connie, I think we missed you because you dipped out there for a minute. Are you okay to read again? Is that okay?
I'm on the road usually on Thursdays. I'm working. I'm in and out. Yeah,
it's
so
it's fine. I don't want you to crash. I want you to be safe. So it's absolutely fine. Don't worry. Okay. So, Darkman, are you able to do some reading with us today? Oh, I don't think he's by his mic. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we do is I'm going to do a little bit. Oh, thank you, Melanie. Melanie, I don't know if everyone can see the chat, but Melanie's just put up a message saying, "Hey, everyone, you look great." Oh. Where are you, Melanie? We want to see you. I can't even see you on Clubhouse. I'm sorry. Okay, so are you okay if I do a little bit of reading then while we kind of wait for Samuel? So I did a very exciting thing this weekend. I know Adam knows a little bit about it. I actually work. I don't say work. I don't actually get paid for it. It's just volunteer work. But I actually work with a local charity, and we put on every year a carnival for the community. And this year we did a 3-day event, and so I literally spent the entire weekend doing the health and safety, believe it or not. And it was fun. I actually had a really good time, and it was great talking to people, and it was great getting involved with people, and it was brilliant. But whilst I was there, I had a very exciting thing. I actually was able to get some of my books signed, which was really cool. So it's the first time I was able to do that. So I have sold other books, but it was just nice to actually meet people in person and do proper book signings. So that was cool. I'm just going to read a little bit from my book, and then Sonetro, is that how I pronounce your name? Can you hear me?
Hey, how are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I wonder, would it be possible for you to read after me? Would that be okay? I'm only going to read a little bit from mine because I've already done a little bit read. I don't want to hog the show because it's not about me. But would you like to go next after me?
Well, I don't have my book with me. I was just tuning in for a little bit.
Well, it's very well. You're very welcome to be here. And it's very nice to have you here. So you're very
Thank
welcome to just sit and tune in and listen. So that's cool. So that's fine. And do you know what? What's really lovely is I think we've got more people just tuning in and watching than I thought we expected to have, which is lovely. So welcome absolutely everybody. It's so cool to see you. Now last week I read a little bit from book one, and this is book one of my sort of science fantasy, dark fantasy novel, and I read the bit where it was the turning point for Ray. And so what I thought we'll do is I'll read a little bit from where Ray has she's on the journey now towards getting to where the mountains are. Okay. As night drew in, we reached the Nidella River. All we needed to do was track our route. To track our route was to follow the path of the tinkling brook. We were still miles from the estate, but I couldn't help but be excited to see it again. The remnant had not worked since I saw the monk, and I wondered whether it was tied to Surrey, or that it had been broken. It was the only thing that kept me linked with Puff. The crystal clear water of the river was perfect for drinking, and instead of moorland, the river was flanked by elm and oak trees with large weeping willows spread between, their dying leaves dangling above the water. We all raced to it and drank until it quenched our thirst. We could at least rest a while here. We had shelter, so whoever was tailing us wouldn't notice us with a small fire and water to drink. Although I knew how to fish, I had no bait, and wasn't sure how to hunt without the right materials. Come on, we'll camp here tonight. Raven pointed to the massive weeping willow that shrouded its undergrowth in darkness. I nodded, and he returned it with a slight smile. He had not said a word for the duration of our trek, nor had Ash. Instead, they had kept a steady pace along the route, whilst they found each step exhausting, but my wounds had kept me moving forward. Ash, can you hunt around for logs, twigs, and leaves? The drier the better, okay? I needed to keep her busy, to keep her mind focused. She saw her brother die right in front of her, and she was half my age. God. Raven, I know how to fish, but I can't without any bait. Any ideas on how we can eat tonight? I realize you might not be hungry, but it will keep you warmer. I know how to hunt. I could help you. A flicker of interest crossed his face. Good. That's good. What game? Oh, I can set some traps for rabbits or catch a pheasant. His face brightened and he reached for my arm, using a gentle hold to squeeze it, but did not release. It was the first sign of needing comfort he had shown. I returned the affection. We lingered for long seconds, and I gazed up at his face, which, despite remaining haggard, a warmth from his eyes stirred an emotion I had become a stranger to. Trust. I'll teach you how to make weapons to hunt. I nodded, and we released our hands. First, though, I'll show Ash how to make a fire. With the fire lit and all rehydrated, we left Ash resting by its warmth. I followed Raven through a small thicket that led to some meadows where he paused and crouched, peering at the ground. What are you looking at? Rabbits drop-ins. They're nocturnal, so this is the perfect time to catch them. Look. Raven pointed to some on the ground. They're here. Now we have to make a field bow. I didn't have the heart to tell him I already knew that, but instead I nodded and asked him to show me what to do. Show me how to use the resources surrounding us to make the crude-looking bow with a selection of arrows crafted from various long twigs. Whilst I knew about using snares to catch rabbits, this was new to me. Now what? We wait. For what felt like an age, we waited in the cold and the shadows for our prey, until at last his keen eye spotted one and he took his shot. A clean kill. As I moved to stand, he grabbed me, stopping me from standing. Not yet. Look, there's another one. We left the area with 3 rabbits, satisfied we weren't going to go hungry, and we returned to camp. Raven showed me how to prepare them and cook them, and I watched him tear off a piece of the cooked meat and hand it to Ash, who ate it slowly, her appetite returning from being near starved. My mouth watered, and I reached for a cut too. The meat was staved the cold away, and we could at least get some proper rest tonight. You two sleep. I'll take the first watch, I said, as Ash yawned and curled up next to Raven, who dipped his head in thanks. I'll wake you in a few hours or so. The spot we had chosen under the willow had long stems which were vast in number and provided a curtain that offered us some shelter from the bitter cold. In sleep, Ash's face relinquished the trauma she had gone through, appearing at peace. Raven, on the other hand, had a fitful sleep, with multiple times stirring. At one point he sobbed, his nightmares tormenting him as he slept, then cried out for his brother. I went to him and rested my hand on his shoulder. It's okay, I whispered, and he settled a little. Rather than waking him for the next shift, I let him rest. Sleep was evading me anyway, and besides, the clouds had cleared. The blanket stars twinkled above, and the indigo and purple stars from the galaxy cast a rainbow arc across the sky. Could nearly see the stars. Could nearly see the stars. Did she know that I didn't mean to lose her? Nayli, if you can hear me, I'm coming for you. I have no idea yet. I have no idea how, but I promise you I'll never stop. The fire smouldered, so I loaded more wood onto it and watched as the flames roared, engulfing the wood and thrust out more heat. The lack of clouds had chilled the air, and a layer of frost dusted everything, so it was a welcome comfort. As the stars faded from the dawn, I nudged both Ash and Raven awake. Oh, is it my watch? He yawned as he asked. No, it's nearly dawn, but we need to get going. But you needed the rest more than I. Let's go. Oh, just take it easy, all right. I don't want you passing out from exhaustion. He mustered a slight smile and helped Ash up from the ground. The brief display of kindness made my eyes well, and I felt him studying me. Whilst I knelt to remove as much of the evidence of the fire as possible, burying the remaining charred area, and then use some twigs to make it appear more natural, I was conscious he hadn't looked away at this point. Heat flushed my face, but I ignored it, glancing up at him. He turned his head and spoke to Ash, reassuring her. They embraced, and I smiled inwardly to myself. As we embarked for the second day of our trek, Ash slipped her hand into mine. Surprised by this, I looked at Raven, unsure. Gave me a muted smile, and I held her hand tight as we left our camp to continue the journey. At least there was only about another 40 miles to go, which we could do perhaps in a single day if we hurried. I'm cold, said Ash, her teeth chattering. Here. Raven removed his coat and wrapped it around her, tugging her hands through the sleeves that were far too long for her. Better? She stood with the coat fully buttoned and the sleeves were flapping past her hands. I giggled at how ridiculous she looked, and Raven started to laugh. Ash regarded us for a moment, and then a smile grew on her face. It felt good to laugh. I hadn't in so long. The moment was brief, but had lifted some of the darkness we each held in our hearts. 0 dark. The hour of twilight. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach. I was going to see the garden again, the beautiful memorial tree, the cherry trees, and perhaps have one last look at my former home before I was gone from it forever. The closer we were, the more my stomach twisted into knots. Flashes of pain throbbed in my neck, back, and in my chest. In silence we crept through the woodland, and as the tip of the chimney came into view, my heart pounded in my chest. My home! I was going to see my home! Images of my old room, the fireplace, the view from the garden floated in my mind. Perhaps Raven could help get me rid of Teller. My stomach did an excited flip in agreement. I couldn't wait to see that monster fall from grace and be at home once more, even if it was only for a short while. I could always return in the spring. It was just that being alone, even in my home, brought away with nausea. But as the barn and house came into view, I froze. My jaw dropped, and I stared at the vast pile of rubble and dirt that was once the home I loved. It was gone, all except the wall which had the chimney breast. They had burned the barn to a cinder, and the gardens were bare soil. Nothing was left. No cherry tree, no stables. Strong hands held me as my legs gave way. Steadied, I pushed Raven away and ran to the burned-out rubble, but a hard tug on my arm that wrenched me back stopped me. "Ray, wait!" He pointed to where the wall was crumbling. "If you go near there, you could bring the whole thing down on top of you." But, was all I could manage. Raven squeezed my soldier. There was nothing more he could say. I scanned the area. "What's happened here?" Ash echoed my thoughts. Her eyes were panning the scene, her hand gripped Raven. I don't know. My mind spun, and my head was now throbbing. I rubbed it, but it did little to ease such a stab of pain. "What do you want to do? Should we still look for the weapons and supplies?" Again, surely that was still intact. "It's in the ground, under the barn." Raven examined the area and then pointed at a mass of charred wood and ash. "Well, could that be it?" I nodded. It was supposed to be sealed against the even flood, so it might be all right. A glimmer of hope dawned in the back of my mind. The shelter had everything we needed to survive. I jogged over to the jagged wood that marked the wall of the barn and peered down at the ground, stepping onto the ash that sent tiny particles into the air, spinning in wild circles before falling to the ground again. I kicked more of it out of the way, watching the floor for the entrance, and the more I kicked, the more agitated my search became. Why was it burned down? Who would do this? When did they do this? And then I found what I was searching for. The metal from the camouflage workbench was twisted and contorted into gnarled shapes from the heat of the furnace. I pulled with all my might, but it did not budge. Raven helped, but still it did not move. "Oh, the fire's welded the entrance shut. There's no way we'll be getting in there now." I glared at him. "There must be a way." He folded his arms, his face cold and determined. "The heat from the fire has welded the door to the ground. There ain't no way we're getting in there." I'll leave it there. So that's the book, in case you're interested. So there you go. So that's my book. So that's book one. I do have book two. Book two is coming out in terms of like hardback very soon, and I will be sharing that with you as well. And I'm in the process of writing book three. So yeah, so there you go. So now, what did you think? Let's go to some people. Reese, what did you think of my story? And I'm going to mute myself each time so that you don't have me with an echo.
I loved it. Listen, you know I love listening to you read because it draws you into the scene for one. So and especially with the Twilight portion of it and Ray just longing for home and unfortunately finding out that it's not what she thought it was going to be when they got back. And poor Nelly. Nelly's still out in the wilderness right now. But I loved it. I love the imagery. I love the emotion behind it. It's heartfelt. It tugs at you for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, poor Nailey was in the castle with Ray, and the last time I read, Ray was just about to make her escape. I don't want to give any spoilers as to how she makes an escape, but as you can see, Nailey's not with her. So it gives you a little hint of what's happened in terms of that. But yeah, thank you, Reese. That was really, really lovely of you. It's really hard to write like in first person character because you're kind of hiding so much stuff from the audience, and the world building you have to do has to be very centered on what that person's point of view is going to see and nothing else. So although I have a huge backstory that goes with it, like for example, I'll give you a little hint into why mine works. I've shown Adam this actually. This is one of my notebooks that I use where I kind of like make all my notes and stuff to help me with my world building. But it's yeah, I've got all that, but Ray doesn't know any of it. So to write a character who doesn't see any of that is quite tricky. So yeah, it's a fascinating read, and it's been. I didn't intend to start it off talking about mental health, but actually it's progressed into that, and I think it's such a key thing nowadays. About again, like Rotica, it's about normalizing mental health and actually accepting the fact that you need help. And what I've done is the monsters that she faces off against in the books, as she progresses and her mental health declines in the books, the monsters get bigger, more scarier, more dangerous. And they're like a metaphor for how by not dealing with those inner demons, hence the title of Thorns and Demons, it's dealing with the hurt and the pain that is within us. They get bigger. You have to deal with them. You have to confront them first, and help yourself, because otherwise you can't do that. And so Ray's struggle is very much akin to what we would go through if we go through trauma. And I'm not saying everybody who goes through trauma has mental health problems, but there is certainly a link there, and Ray unfortunately does suffer from it. So I'm also dying to know what Adam thinks as well, because I know Adam's seen little snippets of it and stuff as well. So I'm just going to mute myself, Adam, so we don't have interference. Hang on.
Yeah, no, great. I loved it. I was hoping to ask a question, so maybe unmute for just a second. I want to know how old the characters are. They're like young teenagers or early tweens or something?
Yeah, so they don't have age like we have. They obviously, they hit like the law short story that I wrote, so kind of like where they come from. And they've kind of gone background in circle again. Their technology's lost. So they're now counting in winters, which is what we used to do anyway as people. And so Ray is around 16 winters old in this one. And as we go through the series, she actually ages, because I remember reading books like The Famous Five, for example, and the characters all stayed the same age for like hundreds of books. So I think it's important that she ages as the books go. Raven is around a year or two older than her, so he's around 18 winters old in this one. He is a hardened soldier, but he's the sweetest, gentlest, kindest person. So there's a little bit of a love interest going on in there. Ash, who is with them, she's around 10 winters old, and she's around Nailey's age, who's around 10 winters old as well. So yeah, I've kind of kept it in the old school way, because mine is a blend of like traditional style fantasy, mythological creatures, monster hunting, and science fiction, all kind of blended into one thing. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, no, great, because that's part of what I wanted to say, is that when you're reading, there's you're talking about Reese's characters. When you're reading, there is your narration that is separate from the characters that you're presenting. When you read, it felt like you would suddenly embody a 12-year-old for a minute while you were reading one of the characters, and I don't know, I just love that. I thought it was great. So I'm really looking forward to reading your books, because I do think you have done that well. You've got very, what seems like very adult writing through that, very, very grown up, mature with plenty of vocabulary, and then kids who are struggling to try and put their thoughts into words, and it's really believable. And I feel like you did that well. But as the narration goes, we're getting to feel Ray's thoughts and her experiences, but you are writing the narration in a way that is almost more advanced than her ability to speak it. She can't even put into words exactly all that you're putting her through and you're giving her to experience. And I think that's very authentic of a youth, a teenager, a young preteen, especially. I know you said Ray was 16, but it felt like there was the other kid was younger. You mentioned, yeah, you totally nailed it with the characters. I can't wait to read it. So yeah, looking forward to when that second book comes so I can get them both. Yes.
Excellent. Well, what I've also done is Ray's actually part of the LGBTQ community, and there are going to be so in book 3 we meet a character who's non-binary, and so the Orcarians, who at the moment don't exist in terms of Ray's point of view, they are just gender doesn't mean anything to them. You are just you. So because they're much more advanced than the humans, they are technically the good guys. The humans are baddies in my series, and so I'm trying to incorporate lots of real world things, but with that science fiction fantasy backdrop. So it almost softens it a little bit, so it doesn't become quite so harsh. There's also nothing graphic in there, so there are Ray is tormented through like you said, she has a huge amount of thoughts going on, but she just doesn't know how to articulate them because she feels stupid, or she doesn't know if someone's going to receive it very well. She just, like a typical teenager, I suppose, a bit of an introverted teenager. And so it's almost like a stream of consciousness that's going on with the narration in the story. And so we hear her thoughts and her continual thoughts going on in the book. And all the narration is her thinking. So it's a little bit different from some books where it's done in first character, where you get other descriptions as well. So it's all centered on her. And she does go, I put her through quite a lot. And in book 1, she gets broken, but it is about how she learns to recover from that. Because I think as adults, we can all attest that we've all been broken at some point. We've all felt broken for one reason or another. And I think by having a character who actually does that, actually, brings it home and makes it feel more realistic. So yeah. So I am working on book 3 and the short story. So yeah. So there you go. So what I might do next week is actually read the short story to you guys, so you can hear that and see what you think. Yeah. Once I've done my tweaks on it. So yeah. So thank you so much. Now, thank you, Reese. Now we've got Samuel. You're on the screen, but not on the screen. Oh, can you hear me, Samuel?
Yes, I can.
Yay! I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the evening with a wonderful poem from you. Would that be possible?
Oh, would you like for me to share?
Would you mind? That would be amazing. I'd love to hear one of your poems.
Okay, so should I put Clubhouse on mute and use StreamYard or what?
So I'll mute myself. If you put your Clubhouse so it's not on mute, so you might hear a slight sort of like if you turn your phone right down so it's really, really quiet, so you can't hear yourself giving feedback or anything. Put Clubhouse on so it's like live, so we can hear you on Clubhouse, and make sure you're unmuted on here. We'll mute ourselves on Clubhouse and on here, so it's just you and your voice that gets heard.
Okay,
right?
so let me get it clear. So I should mute myself on here on StreamYard and just use Clubhouse for my vocals.
No, keep yourself unmuted for both, but turn the volume of your phone right down so you don't get any. Because what I don't know about anybody else, but when I can hear just slightly the Clubhouse, so I've turned the volume on my phone right down so I don't hear that. But I know that people can still hear me because it doesn't affect their end. Does that make sense?
Okay, let's see here. Okay, that made noise. Okay.
I sounded like a and I was like on repeat. That's cool. All right, okay. So I'm gonna mute myself. So you keep yourself unmuted on both. But I'm gonna mute myself on both here and on Clubhouse. All right. Hey, it's nice to see you. Hello.
Okay, so I'm just using, I guess, StreamYard for vocals.
So have you unmuted Clubhouse as well?
Clubhouse is, I got the volume turned down, but it's still on.
Perfect. That's it. So you talk to the camera, which I know you probably don't normally do, but talk to us, and yeah, we'll be able to hear you on both ends. But I'm going to mute myself so you don't get any like feedback or interference or anything.
All right, so I'm going to be live tonight in the city where I live, and I'm going to do this. She needed a bedtime story. It was more than wine and candles she would hunger for. I thought for a moment how passionate this was going to be. And then she whispered, "Read to me." She left a hint on the nightstand. I knew she had been reading. Little did she know, I was reading too. I took book in hand. Just before I opened it, I recited a line. "I'm going to love you like a blind man would do." She smiled. I smiled too, then whispered, "I will surrender my soul to you." She said, "Turn to page 62. Now she knows I would read her because it felt good discovering myself. True story, this past forgotten, these ancient memories feeding my soul. I wanted more, and she was giving. Inviting me like home, she shared her emotions, leaving echoes on wall paintings. I spoke her name. She's dark girl magic. It wasn't her appearance I fell into, thinking this what makes me. She was that dare I needed, I had to. She spoke her mind, and I don't mind the inner beauty moves me. I could taste the hunger. After all, she's temptation. If only she knew, the dark girl, I'll be loving you with all of my senses. Not just the 5 they mentioned, my 360 coming in dimensions, encompassing. If I were making love, I would inhale the scent of you like the sheets do. Take your breath away like a silent movie to be deeper into you. You sing it to me and I come alive. The fire in your body engulfs the depth of my soul, and I feel you like music. Even though you're only next to me because the place cards put us here, your perfume has got the best of me. Looking across the table, my mind is stuck on just how amazing you look tonight. Pretending to engage in a conversation, but thinking, I'm glad they can't hear this secret language we're speaking. I laugh, you smile, you laugh, I'm flying. You don't have to catch the bouquet. This might be the prize day. Somehow, it's still all about you. I've had good things come to me, sipped on both pleasures and pain. And baby, I've enjoyed your company. This might sound a little insane, but would you be my next best thing? I am Complicated Passions, the voice behind this pen. Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to find the mute between the buttons. It's a little bit confusing. Still getting used to it. Oh my god, that was amazing. I don't know about you, Reese. Maybe you, Adam, as well. I felt like you were actually talking to me, like, directly.
Right?
Did you feel that as well? It was so beautiful. Oh my god. I love that.
Thank you.
And you performed it so beautifully. And do you know what? I actually really love the fact we can see each other. It's added so much depth. Hearing people recite things, hearing people read things is amazing. It's, you know, it brings out this whole other world that you probably never experienced before. But being able to see someone perform it like that, and like what we did, and like what it's just amazing. I'm loving it. I don't know about everyone else, but I really enjoyed that, and I felt like you and I were sitting across the table, and you were talking directly to me.
Well, that's what they're going to feel tonight when I'm performing. Of course, this is going to be a little practice session for me because, you know, I'm starting my tour this month. in September. So I want to go out tonight and practice to a live audience and get that feel how I want to address the mic and the stage. And, you know, as I move across the stage, because the place is small, so have an opportunity to project and let the audience feel it and then play with them, you know, a little bit. That's what I'm going to do tonight. So it's going to be fun.
You're I mean, like it felt like some people when they're in front of a camera can be a little bit awkward, and that's fine. You know, there's no disrespect to them at all. You know, sometimes I can be a bit awkward in front of the camera. You know, I'm sure other people won't experience that as well. But you didn't. You owned that camera.
Oh yeah, you know, when
owned
you're
the screen.
performing, no, but when you're performing and there's 1,000 people in the audience, that means you have 2,000 eyes watching you at the same time. Or if it's 500, or I perform the same way if it's only just one person. If it was one person on the screen looking at me, they would get the same performance as if it were 2,000 people in the audience. I'm gonna give them that same thing. I'm gonna make that eye contact with you. I'm gonna reach out to you. I'm gonna let you and make you feel that this is just for you.
You did. You
Yeah.
absolutely did. You nailed it. And I loved the poem. It was so beautiful. In terms of like, you know, the story behind it, what made you choose to write in that way, and you know, choose to write that story. What kind of inspired you to do that?
Well, I will tell you that I started writing love poems like in the 90s. But I was so busy and hung up in my work, I couldn't get into it like I wanted to. And so, I mean, a decade went by before I started writing again. And then I had to get that certain feel. It wasn't coming out just right. And I'm like, okay, this is not happening. And so then in 2007, I actually, excuse me, freed my emotions. And then I started writing, and it just started to it got more beautiful every time I wrote a poem, and it just started coming out. So here it is now, 2022, and I got so much depth in me that when I hit that stage, I just pour it out for everybody.
There's two words that you said just a moment ago that that completely resonate with me with that poem: depth and beauty. And
Yeah.
I would associate both of those with that poem because it is very deep. You can feel the emotion there. You can see the emotion there, you know, in your face, which like it adds that extra dimension that I haven't seen before because obviously I only normally see an icon. So it's just so wonderful being able to see you actually recite it and perform it, not just read it.
Yeah. Well, occasionally I will bust out a book so I can promote it and read from that book. And sometimes I just give the book to someone in the audience as a gift. Or
Wow.
especially if I bring someone from the audience to the stage to do something for me, I'll give them a book. I love to do this thing where I have if there's a couple, I ask if anyone dating, married or engaged, and then I get that couple to come to the stage, and then I tell the gentleman, I'm your conscience right now, and I'm gonna tell you some things you need to say to her. Look in her eyes and say, if I were making love, you would be the only recipe I need. Okay, that just showstopper right there. So it works, you know, and then I just have fun with the audience and I play with them, or I'll ask about birthdays, if you're a certain zodiac sign. And then I wrote this thing called the 12 Signs of Love, and I'll spit a zodiac poem that's tailored for that sign and just blow them away. And then just capture the audience that way. Or I may say something like, if I will ask, are there any Pisces and Aquarius in the building? And they would raise their hand or say something, and then I'll say, you're a fish and I'm a water sign, and I'm about to drown into you. They just melt right there in the audience.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I love that. And also what I really the other thing that you just said that really resonates with me is the fact you give the book away. Because that is what we're here for, isn't it? It's, you know, we're wordsmiths, and as wordsmiths we give our art away. It's not about just profit and loss, it or business even. It's about, I have words within me, you have beautiful words in you, and I want to share it with you because you're worth it, you know.
Oh, exactly. I can remember doing a show a couple of months ago, and I spit this poem. I don't know. I don't even remember the name of it because I wrote it so long ago. But the line in it was that I told a lady in the audience, she was sitting in the front row, so I told her that I loved her hair and the way she wore it. I would love to take it down and run my fingers through it. The next month I went to that venue, that lady said, I was waiting for you to run your fingers through my hair. I'm like, she's trying to get me in trouble.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so those are the things that it's like I love to create an atmosphere when I'm performing that this is just for you, and this is your private show. Even though the room is full of other people, I make each person feel that I'm just saying it to them. I'm just saying this for you. No matter where you're sitting in this audience, this is just for you.
That's such a gift. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, like, there's people who write poems just because they write poems, and then there's people who have that gift of words, and not just about being able to put the right words in the right order, but by creating, it's almost like a potion of magic out of words that can create emotions in other people, can instill emotions in another person, can create. Go on.
I try to paint a picture like Reese the storyteller, because when she's reading and you're sitting there, I'm like, ooh, I know this movie. I'm like, oh no, I've dreamt this. I'm like, oh, this is so real. Just that last week was like fire. The first time I heard that, I didn't need to see it done. I only needed to hear it, and I painted the picture for myself, and I know exactly what it was. And I'm like, this is so cool, And it's like, and I would say every man desires to have a moment like that. It's like, let me capture this moment live, and that's what it felt. It felt as though I was the actor, I was that guy, and I had that. Oh, it was great. It was great. It was nice.
And I think, again, I'm speaking very generally here, so I'm not saying absolutely every single person who's a female or associates as being a female would experience this, but certainly hearing the words that you say and the way that you say them and the fact that you interact.
I would tell you that I practice. I practice every day. I practice something, and I practice the different tones that I'm going to use. I practice the tempo that I'm going to use. And when I get to a venue, I could plan on doing one particular thing, and then that whole thought process could change, and then I do something else. But I'm always ready because I have so many poems in my head, and I say, how can I tell this story a little different? They may have heard these poems before, but let me rearrange them and address them differently and bring it to their attention. Like, I wrote this poem. I was doing a show, and they said I had 3 minutes, and so I had written this poem called "Emotional Creature." So I ad-libbed the line and said that I was an emotional creature, and I'm about to murder this 3-minute feature. My pen, I'm about to share the moments you need to give in a whisper. So I'll be loving you like a blind man would do. And that was it, and I knew how many poems I could do for 3 minutes. I did a show a few months ago. I wasn't supposed to speak, but they let me. They said, you have 3 minutes. I said, okay. So I get up to the mic, and then the camera guy runs up to me and said, let me put this wireless mic on you because we want to record you. I'm like, okay. So the host had already told everyone in the audience I have 3 minutes. So after the camera guy puts the mic on me, then I tell the audience, I said, and now I have 2 minutes and 40 seconds to love you with all of my senses. And that's how you capture the audience, just pull them in. I tell poets, your first 4 lines, they got to pull them in, and then you pull them in, and then you got them. And then you give them a little bit, and then you give them a powerful ending. It's like, so when you hear me do 2 minutes on this show, that's 4 poems that I've done. So I've given you 4 powerful beginnings and 4 powerful endings and great storyline in between. So I'm keeping you like, it's like, what's coming next? I don't know.
Yeah. And I think actually having that visual. I mean, yes, you can hear that, but again, having the visual really adds to that, because it creates almost tension, but not in a negative way, but like that tension as to what's going to happen next, what's he going to say next, how is it going to progress? Because not only have you got the words, but you've also got it's the way you're saying it, the intonation of your voice, the pauses, the times when you linger a little bit longer on certain sounds in words and things like that, and that all adds to the tension leading up to the ending. It's just amazing. I love your character.
Well, that's the practice every day. You know, I practice every day, at least 15 to 20 minutes a day. I practice something. And because I don't know, anything could happen. Someone could call me on the spot and says, spit something. I'm like, please, I got this. You know,
It's so
and that's
cool.
it.
Yeah. And I said last week, didn't I, that because like actually rap battles have been around for thousands of years, and so, but it's really just poets just angrily shouting at each other, isn't it? Just not necessarily in a very emotionally interesting way like what you do. So thank you so much for sharing. It's just such a lovely poem, and you perform so beautifully. I love that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Absolutely welcome. I'm going to ask Reese, because she had her head nodded several times through there. So I'm going to get her to share her thoughts. I'm going to mute myself, Reese, so you have the floor, okay?
I'm trying to see if I can get Clubhouse back up here. There we go. First of all, that was hot buttered cornbread. Smooth. I'm thinking cognac on this end. I loved it. Listen, Samuel knows every time he reads, I'm just sitting back, just absorbing the whole scene. And to add, just like Jules was saying, to see it and to hear it, you putting both of those things together, and it draws you in even deeper into the experience. And I'll have to say, Samuel Rain is an experience, and you have to be available for the experience.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you say cognac, but mine is a dark rum and a little bit of Coke.
It'll work.
Yummy. Very smooth. It's smooth. What's it? Smooth like, what did I say last week? It's smooth like, I can't remember what I said. I remember I said I compared it to a really nice smooth hot drink, like a cappuccino or something. It has that really smooth feel when you drink it, but it's got that rich deepness that you have as well when you're drinking it. It's got the flavour. It's lovely. All right, I'm going to ask Adam, what did you think of the poem and how it's performed as well? Because I think we can add that in, can't we, to the feedback that we give each other now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to mute, right? So don't get interference.
Great. For me, poetry is my foundation. It's where I started, so I love it. But Samuel's subtle rhyming that you're not expecting it. He's got this nice long line that he draws out, and suddenly you get this little, very subtle rhyme that rhymed with something in a line before. And it's just you're not even paying attention to the big rhyme scheme. It's just part of the gorgeous, and the vocabulary, amazing. Yeah. Samuel, thank you for the delivery, the sharing from your heart. Yeah, love it. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. And you captured all those moments about, I really don't like rhyming, so I try to put it and what I call it is my words meeting at a certain point and not actually rhyming. And so it works for me. And this is years of writing. I know from 2007 to now, I've written thousands of poems. I used to write 7 poems a day. And I did that for 10 years.
Wow.
Every day. You know, it was like, I get the kids off to school, I'm writing. The kids come home, I'm cooking dinner. The kids go to sleep, I'm writing. And that's what I would do every day. And I did that. And my kids, they gave me the space to write. you know, my kids were my biggest fans. I would be practicing at home and my kids would applaud for me. So I'm like, oh,
Excellent.
my poetry's good. My kids are applauding for me, you know. And both my kids are writers. So you know, so
Oh,
something rubbed off
excellent.
on them, you know.
Yeah.
So, one day that they may take it up and start doing it on a regular basis, but they have penned some poetry that amazed me. I had to cut my daughter off. I'm like, no, you're not old enough to say those things. But
Sounds like
no.
she must have an old soul. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so she was hearing me spit the love poems, and I remember one time we were listening to a show, and my daughter said, "That's not poetry," you know, for what she was hearing. I'm like, "No, baby, that's not really good poetry right there." So it was real. So no, I do appreciate that, and just being on this platform, and being able to share every week, it's almost like practice as well, you know, and then get to hear other people perform, and then I learn from what they do, and then I'm like, oh, and then you learn your breathing and your tone and your pattern and all that, and just capture, and you take in everything that you hear and the feedback that you get. Everyone wants to be nice. Sometimes I would tell people exactly what I feel, because the truth is what makes you grow, and not just what you hear if someone says that, oh, you're good, you're good, you're good. No, I will hit you on the back channel and tell you, oh, I think that maybe
How to get better. Yeah, how to get better.
And so
yeah.
This is what I hear. And so when you hear something and then you're doing that, just like if I say slow, like you needed to slow down a little bit. You needed to let us breathe those moments. You know, like when you're watching a movie and the scene happens, some of them are really quick and some of them are, they let you see it happening, you know, and you do that. And then you can watch a movie and you miss the scene because you blinked or you closed your eyes for a moment. And then you come back and watch that movie days later, you be like, I didn't see that.
Yep.
You know, and so that's why people say, oh no, I binge movies. I'll watch a movie 4 or 5 times because there are things I'm going to miss just because I blinked my eye.
Yeah. And your poetry's got that. Every time you recite something, if you recite this poem again next week, it's going to be fresh and new for all of us. You know, where we are emotionally is, oh man, beautiful.
What I will do is to take you, I can use some of those same poems because those poems lead into different poems. And I chose to go in one direction when I said, loving you like a blind man would do. And then, and what I did was, when I said loving you with all of my senses, that was an ad lib that took me to another poem where I said, your perfume has got the best of me. That was a whole nother poem right there in between an ad lib. Or when I said, she's dark girl magic. And then there's another poem that I do after that when I say, I'm going to love you with all of my, no, that's not it. I'm going to love you like a blind man would do. That's a whole nother poem, but I didn't do it. I didn't do that poem. I went to something else. So that's how I could change up when people say, I heard that. And I'm like, no, you ain't heard it like this.
You're an artist. You're an artist.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, you know, it's like when you get a movie and they say this is the extended version or this is the director's cut. That's what I give you. I can give you a director's cut on a poem that's a little different. I don't have a book in front. I don't have that book, but it's on sale on Amazon. It is called The Clone in Me. And you'll read a poem that I said when I say I love your hair and the way you wear it. That poem is in that book, but you get to read the whole poem. I never give you the whole poem on these shows. I just give you a snippet for it because a snippet is all I need from that particular poem. Or there's a poem that the title poem, The Clone in Me, is the original way I wrote it and then the rewrite. So the original is in the front of the book and the rewrite is at the end of the book, and then you'll read something different and you'll be like, I read that. And then when you read it, I'm like, no, I didn't read that line, you know. So that's definitely it. I think that on the 27th, because I haven't shared on Samuel Rain Presents a full like set, I'm going to be sharing on that show on September the 27th.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be here.
Yeah. So I think
you know, we all are.
Now, that's the show that comes on at 1 p.m. your time, though. Greenwich Mean Time. Oh, 1 a.m. 1 a.m.
1
That's a
a.m.
late show.
Yeah, it's I have to listen to the repeats if I'm going to listen to those, but
Yeah.
it's not something that I would like to miss, because I think the way that you perform it, the way you say it, as well as how you create that intimate atmosphere between you and the person who happens to be listening, and it could be any number of people, but they all feel the same, that that is directed to them. And I think that's a
Well,
skill.
no, you could be sitting in the audience,
Yeah.
and this is something I love to do, especially when it's a small, intimate audience. When they introduce me, I don't go to the stage directly. I walk up to someone and I will turn to them, and then I will say, "It's been a while since I've tasted beautiful." And I'm giving it to that one person, and everybody's eyes are on them. They get that whole poem, 30 seconds of me telling them it's been a while since I've tasted beautiful. And
Wow.
and then that captured the whole audience. And then I walk to the stage, and then I let them have more. So you never, it's like when you're a performer, it's like a lot of poets, you'll see them, they just go straight to the mic and start spitting.
Yeah.
Not me. I need to get everybody's attention. I'll even start spitting in the back if it's a small venue for everybody to turn their heads to hear where the voice is coming from.
See, public speaking is something that, like, from my background, is completely, like, is part of the job. And so, I'm used to doing public speaking to large groups of people, large crowds. Um, and so it itself, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me. But I certainly don't have the confidence to do that.
Oh no, when I first started reading poetry out loud, it was at Barnes and Nobles. Not really a place to be reading poetry. Then I was going to another bookstore, and then one day I took myself back into the city. I went to an open mic, and I was blown away. I said, I'm moving back into the city. So in 2009, I moved back to the city, and then I started growing from there. And then by the time 2014, and I was doing open mics, I was getting better, and I was getting advice. Like one gentleman told me, he said, Samuel, you have the words. All you need is a stage presence. And then that's what I worked on. And then another elder told me, he said, Samuel, your poetry is music. So then I hear the music in my head when I'm performing, and that allows me to give them a certain tone and things like that. So I'm playing music in my head. It could be my favorite jazz song, and I know the tempo of it. I know when I got to breathe or enhance a word that I'm saying to make it so much better. Just capture the audience. So I do that. Absolutely.
And I love that. Apologies, my
Okay, so
he wanted to, he was interested to hear what you were saying.
that was
I
something that went across the screen because I do this poem. My brother told me that I was this. So I wrote it in a poem, and the poem, it goes like, let's see. So I had to remember the first line. Um, we all flow differently. Some of us flow rhymes and call it therapy. So I took out my pen like she asked me. She said, write into me and make it nasty. Nope, that's the wrong poem. See, got so much in my head. I was doing the wrong poem. Okay, it goes. Okay,
didn't
here
even
goes.
realise though. God.
But I know that line. It was going to lead me to something else. It says, "Call me what you want, but love me like you're insane. Don't water down your affections. Give in to me like you want these directions. Let me set the fire inside of you. Now imagine what I'm going to do. Feel me, touch me, tease me just a little. Let me in deep. I'm that complicated freak out to get it. Embrace my dare. Let me hit this right here. I'm that number 9, zodiac sign, Sagittarius."
That's so. I don't know how you keep all of that in your head. It's just so cool. I love it. It's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
practice every day, don't you? So you have that kind of.
even if I forget a line in a poem, I don't stop. I don't tell them I messed up. I just keep going to something else. and it'll flow right into the next poem that I want to do, and then it just keeps going. And so I'm like, wow, I got this.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm genuinely so looking forward to seeing you perform again next week. Like I'm so excited, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you as well, Ruth, and you, Adam.
Well, the next time I'm probably going to stand up because I like, if a lot of times I like to perform, I like to stand up so you can get that full screen thing. But that means I got to move some stuff in here to make that happen. So, but I'll probably be standing the next time. I'm sitting down right now. So, and I love sitting too when I'm performing because it gives me a chance to be intimate with the crowd, and especially when I'm holding a book in my hand or something like that. And like I said, I will hold a book in my hand just to play with the audience. Like when I say she said turn to page 62, and then I'll have the book and the audience will be like waiting for me to turn to page 62, and then I'll tell them you have to get the book.
I love that.
Yeah, so and it's all about promoting and letting people see. Now this book right here is on sale for, I think it's under $15. I think I saw 12 or something, but it's a great book, and I hadn't been reciting any poetry from this book, but I'm going to learn some poems from here. There's one thing that I scanned through it, and I found this one thing. Well, actually, I read some on the Clubhouse, and Darius, I read a little snippet, and Darius said, "You can't stop there. That's not fair." And so I read a few more of them from the back of the book, but one of them was, I broke up with poetry. Somewhere in the metaphor, she said she still loved me, even though we're sleeping with the same woman. That's in Love in the Conversation, which is a great book. And the history behind this book is that I mailed out a book. I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but it's called My Recipe for Love. That years ago. And I wrote this book in 2016 to an elderly lady who was old enough to be my mother. She heard every poem in this book before it came out. And the reason why I did that was because her daughter got the book, and then the mother opened it up after the daughter, she opened it and put it back into the envelope. The mother got it and never gave it back to her. So the mother and I became friends, and she was like, she said, "Samuel, my mother has my book." I said, "Well, let me talk to her." And then she let me talk to her mother. We exchanged numbers, and I would call this lady and recite those poems from that book to her as I was writing it. And when she passed away, I dedicated the book to her and put it out in 2019. I actually wrote this book in 2016. It sat on the shelf for 3 years before I put it out because I had so many other books to put out. So this one sat on the shelf, and when she passed away, I dedicate this book in her memory, and that's why I really enjoy this book. But I don't really share it with anybody because I wrote all those poems talking to her on the phone. So it is definitely a great book to read, and you have the conversation. And I have a new book that's coming out. It was supposed to come out earlier this summer, but it didn't. It's called The Conversation, that I wrote with Lala DeVille. Now, I don't know if you heard her spit on this show. I said she was a love poem, and then she wrote she never knew she was a love poem until I read between her lines. And so we wrote a book together, and it is dope. It's called The Conversation. And we wrote that book in 2017, and it's still not out yet. I have it, but I haven't put it out yet.
Wow.
So
Well,
eventually we'll put it out. So
yeah.
And it's got some really nice poems in it for couples to read. Couples can sit down and read it. It is going to be a great book when it comes out.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, so we've gone overtime.
We have a little
Well, we
bit.
started late, but we're going overtime.
It's okay. I wanted to listen to you. You're what you were saying is so important, and I think it kind of marries up with what we were saying about the erotica and sort of like trauma and things like that. I think poetry as well has such an important place in our world, and it speaks to people in a way that novels can't, not in the same way because of the style of writing. So the fact that the way you performed it was just amazing. I loved it. So is that poem that you recited, is it from the book that you just shown, or is it from a different book?
No, the one that the last thing I did was the one it's called recap, and that's why I said I broke up with poetry.
Gotcha. Sorry.
But in 2017, in fact, I broke up with poetry in 2016. But my friend William gave me a line that was so dope, and he called me at 12 o'clock at night. It's 3 o'clock in New York, and he calls me and says, "Here's this line. See what you could do with it." And it was I slept with poetry last night.
Wow.
And
That's
and I got up out of bed and wrote that poem in 5 minutes, no editing. It was a hit, just like that. And it's one of my. I'm not gonna say. I'll say all my poems are my signature poems. There's not one poem that I think is better than the other. They're all dope. I believe they're all dope, and it's my presentation of them that making those poems that way. Everyone's not gonna read your work. It's like I came up with the line because I got a chance to meet um, a lot of different singers and actors and stuff like that when I worked in the entertainment industry. And so I would tell people, "Oh, I'm going to Luther Vandross your poem." Yeah, yeah. If I like your poem and then I decided to recite it, believe me, it's gonna be like Luther Vandross is doing it. It's gonna be that good. I'm gonna make it a hit, and if it was already a hit, it's gonna be a bigger hit when I get a hold of it. So I enjoy reading other people's work, and if it moves me, then I'm definitely going to do it. Okay, that wasn't my phone. Okay.
It's all right. Thank you. Thank you so much. I just I love it. I love it. And I actually really enjoyed watching you perform it as well. So thank you so much, Sonny.
Thank you for having me once again. I do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. We love having you on here. I love this group. We're just so lovely. Everyone's just so nice. It's just like a little family. And you guys welcome me. I mean, like, I kind of came in here, late in terms of this. I mean, I know I kind of started off in terms of the European Book Slam at the very beginning. But in terms of the Book Slam, I arrived very late.
Well,
So
I've been on the book slam now for 9 months. It feels like
wow.
9 months. I think I started in January. I popped onto a show in January, and then this is coming up. So, and then in 3 months, I was invited to do Samuel Ray and Benjamin Presents Dark Man Blues, and so I've been doing those. So this is something that I look forward to coming on the show that I'm going to hear other talent, people reading other things, and like I've met some remarkable writers, and then some speakers as well who can present their work and make it come alive, and it just fills you up. It's like, oh, I'm watching this movie in my head, and I can picture every scene, and I know this movie. And so it's like Adam and Reese, when you're doing your thing, I see this movie, and I'm just playing it out. I'm like, either I'm behind the camera or I'm actually in the movie myself, you know. And so that's what makes it dope. And I love to just listen. I don't have to watch TV all the time, but if I hear a great story being recited by someone else and they can really give it to you, and you can feel everything in there. You can almost touch the artist. It's like when it's a scene and you're talking, I'm like, wow, did I just dream that?
Yes, absolutely. And I do think what's really lovely about this is not only are we very supportive of each other, but we all have our own opinions about things, which is, and I think we're able to share them all without feeling threatened that someone else might get offended from that. But I also think that there are some really talented artists and creators here.
Yeah,
And
no.
it's important to celebrate.
I've been quite moved, and just listening. So I was happy to be doing the European Book Slam because now I get to hear my BBC channel. So it's like, oh, I turn on the BBC because I used to watch a lot of BBC, back in the day. I used to watch it just because I love the tone, I love the voice, I'm like, and the humor that they have, and it's completely different than here in the States. And then you watch these shows, I'm like, well, they can make movies too because they make some dope movies. They ain't just trying to go Hollywood, just the BBC, y'all. You get it real. And then you watch something like, where did I start? Benny Hill and Doctor Who.
Yes, they
Is
are
it?
very good. Yeah.
Hmm. And it was another show that I used to watch. I can't remember the name of it, but it was really good too. and it's over there. So I'm gonna get back on the BBC just to see if I can catch. I'll YouTube it, and then it'll come up. I'm sure it is.
We all have a BBC voiceover.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, our humor is very different, but it's cool. I love it. I love the multiculturalness of what we do. So, you know, it's brilliant. So I'm going to close up. If that's all right with you guys. Thank you to absolutely everyone. So, India, I'm going to thank you first because obviously you're not on screen and no one can see you or hear you. So thank you so much for doing all the bits that you're doing in terms of making sure that the banners are up there and the cameras are working and keeping it moving and, you know, it also messaging me telling me what I need to do. So thank you so much for doing that. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order just because it's fair, not because it means I'm picking favourites then. So it makes it nice and easy for people. So Adam, thank you so much for attending, and it's so great to have you. And I love the fact that you genre and you bring such a fun element to everything. And I love the nickname I've given you, so I'm going to keep that. You know which one I'm talking about. Who else we got? We got Reese. Thank you so much for your lovely story and for your scene, which again I think left some of us a little bit steamed out, shall we say. It was awesome. So thank you so much for coming. Samuel, thank you. Beautiful as always, your poetry. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody else who joined us as listeners and also turned up to just see what we were about and see what was going on. Look forward to seeing you hopefully next week. And looking forward to seeing you guys next week as well. So take care. See you soon and good night.